we're going to talk about AI today. And like I said, it like leading this off, it really can be an assistant that works 24/7, doing marketing, doing sales, helping with clients, helping with operations, helping create content. There's so much that it can do, but you need to know how to use it. And that's the crazy thing, is you literally can talk to it like it's another person or a human, and everybody looks at it as, I don't know how to talk to it. And that's the biggest obstacle first. Like, if you're out there and you've not started using AI yet, you should start using AI. Like, just start using it. But, and Andrew, I think you have a little bit of a funny story for us. Don't trust everything it says. And also, it is AI, so it's not you. It's not your voice. It's not your words. Don't have it do everything, but you need to kind of teach it to be a little bit more like you so it can help you optimally. But let's, before we jump into some of these use cases and before we really dive into how we like to use it or we recommend some coaches use it, let's talk about this funny story that you have with AI.
Yeah, as we're looking at this, we do have a resource that we'll mention at the end, and we'll kind of dive into. Steve did a wonderful job going into how to leverage AI. And when we say AI, we're going to use that interchangeably with ChatGPT because that's the most common one that people know of. We might also expound on that a little bit, but again, there's a freebie at the end. So if you guys want the resource, stick around and we'll make sure we can get you that somehow. Right. But yeah, as far as what Steve's referencing, I'm working on a doctorate in performance psychology, and I think that it's a tale as old as time for students to figure out how to get things done expeditiously, as quickly as possible with the least amount of effort. So if you've never done a literature review, it's a painful process. You literally have to go through, you have to type in 50 million different search terms. You have to look at the pairings of those. You have to add different what are called Boolean operators. You then have to read the abstract to see if it's even relevant. And then you have to read the remainder of the article if it is relevant and kind of formulate your opinion that way, which I think is still a valid, viable skill when it comes to understanding a lot of research and information quickly. So my dumbass thought it'd be a great idea, though, to try to help myself write a paper by asking a AI model, which was Google's AI model, Gemini, to help me find the top 5 resources, meta-analyses and systematic reviews around a particular topic. And I can't remember what it was for the life of me. It was definitely not something sexually oriented. And I'm not saying that, as a joke. It really was not. It was like group dynamics. And not the fun kind, apparently. So as I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, cool. It provides and spits out and gives me like an executive summary. I'm like, okay, cool. And I, trusting that Google is the massive company that's dumped, billions of dollars into research on this and building these things out. Yeah. After the third one came out across my search results or, my prompt, I started to be a little curious as to why they were coming from Bangladesh. Didn't realize they were a big research hub. So on the third one, I'm like, you know what? Let me go ahead and just click on this and skim through it a little bit, not just trust this thing like it's going to have all the information. And sure enough, it literally linked me to some kind of like sexual fulfillment. It was like foreplay is whatever, whatever, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is not what I'm supposed to be talking about. And it provided everything from, it fabricated and it literally made up a summary. It made up the article title, and it didn't, to its credit, make up the PubMed ID, which is the unique number that's attached to a research article. It gave me a legit PubMed ID. However, the PubMed ID took me to something completely irrelevant and completely inappropriate. And had I ever submitted anything without verifying the quality of the information, I would have been fucked. So all that to say, a lot of these things are definitely great for scaling your output. You definitely want to probably have some understanding around the topic you're trying to research or that you want some help with. Otherwise, you're really susceptible to a lot of misinformation such as my little debacle. So had I not checked, might not have been great for me. So there you go. It's story time up front. Steve, have you had any weird interactions with AI before we get
You
into
know,
this?
the most prevalent one for me, and I was really excited. I don't want to sound like I'm dogging Gemini right now, because I'm not. And I think Gemini does have some pretty cool use cases, and they're working on some things that I actually am excited about. But there's a business version where you can go ahead and it basically is integrated into Google Sheets and Google Word and Gmail and all the things. And it's supposed to help across all platforms. Okay, great. So the general idea was if you signed up for this, you paid an extra, I don't know, 20, 30 bucks a month. I could interact with Gemini on one thing and it could still get and take and parse and deliver information from another thing. So I'm in Gemini and I'm asking it information about some of Google Sheets. And it's like, oh, we can do some math. I'm like, all right, totally cool. Like, this is going to be awesome. I can dump a bunch of data in here and I can ask it questions and I don't have to copy and paste and upload and screenshot and all the things that I have to do with ChatGPT. Awesome. But I'm like, hey, let me just see what happens first. So I literally in cell A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I say in or in Gemini, hey, on this sheet, what is the average of cells A1 through A10? And it comes back and the first response was -2. And I'm like, you know, I it can't be like real, like I know the answer, but real quick math, even if I didn't know the answer, none of the numbers were negative. So how could it be -2? Like how is that possible? So I say, oh, that feels like that, or I say something to the effect of that feels like it doesn't it doesn't make any sense to me because you're giving me a negative number when all the numbers are positive. And it responds, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, blah blah blah. The answer is 2. And I'm like, all right, math ain't math in here. And it's, it's one of those things where you're just like, I'm not, why are we getting this wrong? Like, why is this a problem? Why is that a thing? Like, I don't understand, And for those of you wondering what the average of 1 through 10 is, it's also not exactly 5, right? So it's one of those things where you might assume it's 5 and you go down the road. Well, long story short, it didn't work as I read the promise to work. Maybe I misinterpreted, I don't know, but I'm still using ChatGPT, uploading my data, going down that road. And I also keep specific chats on that topic. I don't change topics in the same chat. I keep those running. It houses that data and it just continues to update. And if it gives me something that I am going to use elsewhere, I then make my edits, make sure it's feeling and sounding like me, my words, my whatever. And then I upload, here's what I actually did. Please update your memory to keep so and whatnot. So that's a way to update it. But the stories there is really, again, reinforcing don't trust what it just says. And there's certain words that ChatGPT tends to use that really isn't common, like the word delve. Let's delve into this topic. Like it always says delve. Now, maybe you are that 1% of population that says the word delve a lot. Cool. I know I don't.
I feel attacked.
If I just copy and pasted what it said all the time, it'd say delve all the time. Right. So make sure you're copying and pasting, but editing as well. Otherwise it's not you. Mm-hmm. So anyways, let's jump into some actual use cases here of how I would go about leveraging this for your business, specifically in a coaching business. But Andrew, I'd love maybe your first takeaway. We're gonna save the marketing and lead generation one for the end. So like from your perspective, where's one of the best things that you've used it when it comes to coaching and fulfillment and just helping clients get results or business in general?
Yeah, so, to transition from what you were just suggesting about making sure that you know what you're talking about, I think it's important that the audience understand, if you haven't had any research desires or anything, the way that these platforms largely work is that they're fed information. They're called large language learning models, LLMs. And basically, the way that they work is you give them information and they take that information, they store it, and that's kind of what they reference as they're going through it. So that's why, it's not quite the most logical situation, although ChatGPT recently did release a Sigma model that is supposed to be better at logicking. So,
Well, and you actually bring up a good point. And I assumed, like, I was talking with my friend about AI, and I assumed he knew it because he plays with it a lot, but he didn't understand it. So just to say it in a different way to make sure the point hit home, the logicking thing, AI doesn't actually go in, hear what you say, decipher it, and then give you its own thought out answer. It rather takes all of the data and see which answer to the question comes up the most and delivers that to you. So it has the highest probability of being in its database. It doesn't go, oh, 2 plus 2 is 4. It goes, the most common answer to 2 plus 2 in the data that was fed to me is 4, and gives you 4 in certain instances. Now, like you said, Sigma is a little more around the idea of logicking, but it doesn't think. It gives you the one that comes up most often, and people forget that sometimes.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's somehow more disheartening to know that a lot of people don't know what 2 plus 2 is. So I don't know if that, I feel like that erodes my faith in humanity if they're feeding it bad math. I mean, yeah, this is why it's always important to check the quality of the source of the information. So as a coach, I really don't use it much for many things when it comes to coaching my specific clients. And a large component of that is because I do read the research, and, I've been coaching for over 20 years.
You
And,
told me
and
the other day you use that to write all your programs exclusively now.
no, I didn't. No, I didn't. But although I will say that sometimes I've played around with writing templates, because for me as a coach, I do struggle with writing things for many people, meaning like a one-to-many program, because I do like the nuances, and what works really well for someone might only work okay for someone else, and that's not really, I'm not in the game of okay. I definitely want to deliver the best experience and the best quality results. So that's probably why I struggle to do these group templated things that you find a lot of influencers will often sell. But I think it's really cool that when I first started playing around with ChatGPT, like 2 years ago or something, I tried to get it to write me a strength training plan, and it was god awful. It was like, you should probably do some weightlifting 3 times a week. And I'm like, cool, that's the specificity we have here. And recently, I've trained a couple bots that, Steve has mentioned earlier. We may make them accessible if you're really nice to us. But basically, I took a lot of the research articles. I took a lot of the stuff I learned in grad school and my undergraduate programs in just different textbooks. And I trained a bot to spit out better quality information because I had more control over what I was giving it. And on the back end of that, I had it write a marathon training program. Now, I will say that as I was going through this, and just for everyone else that's going to have really high expectations of what ChatGPT or something similar might have, it's going to require some massaging, meaning you're probably going to have a couple exchanges back and forth. You might ask it to construct a marathon plan, and it might be like, hey, 3 days a week, go lift weights, 2 days a week, go train. And then, that might be the end of it. So you might have to ask it, well, okay, what does month 1 look like? What does a resistance training plan look like? What does the actual periodized intent behind this look like? And it's capable of giving you those pieces of information if it has access to them. And if it doesn't, then you can feed it to them, and it'll, exactly what Steve said, update its memory. And so that's the really cool part about training your own series of bots. If you're in the, real estate market, or if you're in fitness, or if you're in nutrition, or if you're a lawyer, or if you're an accountant, like, you can get these bots and you can feed them technical manuals that you've had over the years, and you can use it almost like a really overpowered Google search engine that, hey, I want this result. I would look it up. But now it's going to create this curated list that's more specific to the parameters that you give it. So when it comes to how I use it, oftentimes it's really just to quickly find a lot of information that I don't want to sift through. People will use it creatively, to write a program, and I think that that's a cool jumping off point if you need some help with program design. It's also great for dumping. Actually, I will say I do use this for this. I'll take lab work that I'll get from clients. I'll run it through my software that I normally run it through. I'll look at it. I guess back up for a second. I'll look at someone's labs when they come across my desk, form an initial impression. I'll then put it through the software, and then I'll also now put it into ChatGPT, and I'll have it create a radar plot of where should people be, where are they, and it kind of creates this nice little visualization. And so that's really cool from a manipulation point of not just having the information, but also making meaning of it visually, which is a great thing that I think a lot of people really respond well to. Because if you tell someone like, hey, your proteins are a little bit higher, like they're not really going to understand what that means. But like, hey, you might be a little bit dehydrated based upon this because these markers, here's a picture. They're like, oh, okay. The same way that we teach kids. So basically, I would say to wrap it all up for how I use it, I use it to quickly look through a lot of information and help me identify the meaningful things that I might have some questions around, or to more or less like house information that I would normally have FAQs, almost like a living FAQ answer kind of device. So those are the ways that I use it these days. What about you, Steve?
So I would say research is going to be one of the biggest things, but not so much research in the broad sense. Like, hey, I want to go down a road of solving a specific problem. I want to talk about a specific topic. Ask me 10, 20 questions about this thing, and then give me 10, 20 ideas type mentality, right? So ask me a bunch. I'll deliver to it what I know, reference certain things if there's a opportunity for that, and then have it throw things back at me. And it becomes a really good way to get unstuck from that like creative spot where it's like, all right, I don't know what to write about, what to go into, or what to build a presentation on, or what problem to solve, or whatever it might be. That has probably been one of the most helpful ways for me, where it saved me a lot of time from having to go down this road of just forcing the thing that I find, but today isn't like driving that passion. Sometimes it comes up with some really dumb ideas, but you at least laugh and you kind of get through it. Other times it gives you like, oh man, this is actually pretty good. This is interesting. There's 5 things that are interesting. Let me remember these, write them down, or tell it to remember, hey, these are the things. So that's a really great way to just help move that through that like mental block, or that writer's block, so to speak. But parlaying out of there, a lot of what we get to do is education based, right? So it comes down this, hey, I want to drive home a point. I want to teach somebody something. So take, for example, like the belief shifting framework that we teach people when it comes to marketing and lead generation, right? And one of the big things that we walk through is how do we communicate with our ideal customers and potential clients better. And again, we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But after we do that, we now need to bring these people through some type of choreographed marketing and sales dance to get them to want to buy from us, but also to make sure they're a good fit, right? How many times does somebody land on a Zoom call or in front of you in a consultation office or whatever, and they're just not the best fit? And sometimes it's going to happen, but probably a majority of the times because you suck at marketing. Like, in the nicest way, I love you possible, right? Like, that's a big issue that's out there. So we want to drive people through this framework, but it can be a behemoth, right? So we think through things and we want to align with a micro problem of theirs. For example, last night we got to talk to somebody and the conversation was, hey, what's your biggest struggle? My biggest struggle is I can get leads, I just can't sell them. Okay, got it. Totally understand. How do you get leads? Well, online I post. Okay, cool. So there's a massive difference when it comes to, hey, I help with weight loss, super broad, super open, left open to what everybody's interpretation of weight loss is, or I help people shed fat who historically have never been able to shed fat. And it's like, oh, you align with somebody who thinks that they can't shed fat, somebody who naturally holds on to fat longer. It's an entirely different conversation. In the business side of things, or for you coaches, it's like, oh, if I go out, oh, do this thing if you have a failing business. Well, failing is very broad, right? Very, very broad. But hey, if you feel confused about what you should be doing in your business, do this thing. I hit the point of, oh, people feel confused. I mean, listen, in Instagram, how many ads do we get a day on what to go do? Super easy to get confused. So we become a little bit more specific, right? And when we talk about some of those pieces, brainstorming with ChatGPT on this, for example, how do I align with a micro problem that my potential client might have? It's a great brainstorming partner to go back and forth with on some of those things. And that's probably one of the things that's been the most powerful for me and helping pull me through things that I already know this framework exists. Like Steve taught me the belief shifting framework, and this thing sounds amazing, but man, there's 6 steps and it's a lot of work. Like I need somebody to brainstorm back and forth with. And then on top of it, like I solved it for one micro problem, but I have 400 because Steve also gave me this big marketing mastery kind of masterclass thing that I went through. And it's like, man, this is 2 years worth of content that I put together in 2 hours of time. But like, you need that brainstorming partner because it just helps. So,
yeah, definitely helps to, and a vibe board.
oh, I love my vibe board. You don't have to buy a vibe board, but I do love my vibe board. It's a fun brainstorm thing too.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and to think that you can create a lot of different things to the degree that almost it's paralyzing. I think that even using ChatGPT to figure out, hey, here's what I do professionally, which actually this might be a good segue into prompting. If you were trying to figure out, hey, I'm stuck in my professional setting. Maybe I'm in, the industrial real estate industry, right? And you're trying to figure out where the marketing gaps might be, what things are coming up, maybe what education might be beneficial for you. There's just so many things that it can really act as a career counselor for a lot of people as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so the sky's the limit. And if you don't know how to use it, and you're kind of putting it off, like, it's free. If you wanted to go and use the free version, I think it's a little more limited. It's $20 a monthly subscription for, again, ChatGPT specifically, but there's a specific way that people want to engineer these prompts. And that's basically how you structure what you ask it. The first thing that you should provide in your chat whenever you're starting a thread is the context. I want you to act as a industrial real estate consultant. I want you to act as an educational consultant in the online education space. I want you to act as a business coach for online entrepreneurs in the health and education space. Whatever that thing that you want it to pretend to be, is what it will then kind of bracket all the information around. So then the second thing you want to do is you want to tell it what you want. Act as a blank consultant, right? Or act as an IT. And I use the IT one the most these days, of like, act as an IT infrastructure consultant. I want to design a data analysis tool that's going to help me quickly sift through information quickly to find the most meaningful pieces. So that would be the second part of telling it what I wanted. Part number 3, I would then add or list the constraints. I don't want you to make it, a Python table. I don't want you to whatever. I want you to put it in a spreadsheet. I want you to, it needs to be 500 rows or less, or it needs to be something, whatever the specific thing that you needed to fit is, goes in here. It's kind of like the modification section. And then the last thing that goes into a really good prompt, and I pulled these from an online AI course that we took. from Darius Lucas. So shout out, we'll take a percentage of that. But yeah, I mean, spent the couple $100 on that to really look through it. And it really wasn't too groundbreaking beyond what you'll find from some good Instagram stuff or some good social media. But number 4 here is to provide examples. So, and this is where you mentioned, Steve, in the very beginning, having it find your voice. So if you're using it to do copywriting, if you're using it to do your socials, there's a specific way that people speak and talk and think ultimately that then shows up inside of how they deliver their content. Well, it's very weird and robotic sometimes, the same way that you can tell when someone's reading off of a script when they're giving you a tour at a gym and they're trying to sell you personal training. What is your health history? You're like, oh my fucking God, like get out of here, dude. Right. So this is where your opportunity to give it an example of what you're looking for. Like if you have a template, I have spreadsheets that I use for my labs for my clients, and I'll feed it that, and it'll sit there and it'll take that stuff and then spit out whatever it is, the first version of that. And every response is a draft, if you want to think about it like that. So then I'm like, I don't like that. I like this, change that, change this. But the first part is what ultimately is going to embed in that memory bank of, I want you to act as a legal consultant. I murdered someone on Tuesday night, allegedly, with a rope. How do I get in? It's kind of funny, and I say that tongue in cheek, but it's pretty amazing what it can construct and the information it has access to. So again, 4 parts: context, tell it what you want, add or list the constraints. And then the 4th thing is provide examples. So Steve, as far as using ChatGPT, anything else that you found helpful from prompt engineering practices?
I would say one of the biggest things that people have found the most value out of is, how do I talk to my ideal customer a little bit more clearly, a little bit more specifically? But on top of that, how do I actually build my content strategy around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes one of those opportunities where, listen, if you're in coaching on any level, even if you're in person and not online per se, you should still be building a content library on the back end. You should still be doing these things. This isn't a social media is the only way to get leads conversation, but it is a great way to go out there and meet people, provide value, and just see what's going on. So it's always a challenge of man, what do I record today? What do I write something about? What do I do? What's the thing? It's always hard. Even for me, it's a struggle. So one of the things that I learned that was extremely valuable by attending a conference actually was getting ChatGPT to write a journal entry pretending that it is your ideal client. Now, the reason why this is good is, at the end of the day, one of the places that somebody is absolutely raw, completely free, and super just honest about what they're feeling and the things that are going to motivate them is if they have a journal, or if they were to write a journal that no one else is ever going to read. They're going to be super honest and put it all in there. So if you could read that person's journal entry, this very specific thing about being overweight is what bothers me. It's not like we don't have to tell people that are overweight that they're overweight. They're aware. Lizzie is straight up aware that she's overweight, but she don't care. She's super body positive. That's awesome. But she knows, right? We don't have to tell her. But there are still things that people struggle with. So a great example is somebody went through this exercise and they were telling me the journal entry. And one of the journal entry, one sentence that stood out to me was, I go to the gym, but I feel like I don't even belong there. And when you think about it, the gym is likely one of the most inclusive places to be. There's nobody in the gym going, oh, look at that fucking guy over there, can't do the thing. That's just not how people in the gym, generally speaking, are. There's one asshole I know. Every gym's got that guy. There's always those people. I know that they exist. But generally speaking, that's not what happens. But this person, they can get to the gym, they can do the things, but when they get there, at the end of the day, they feel like they don't belong and they end up just leaving and not even working out. So now This person was able to take that feeling and understanding of what's going on, the embarrassment, the just not feeling like they belong somewhere, the somebody is looking at me, all these eyes are on me, and what that feels like, and start to turn those things into content. That lack of confidence in the gym is literally a micro problem of I want to lose weight. The losing weight gives them the freedom to feel comfortable in the gym. It's actually not about the weight loss. That's not the motivator. That's not the thing that's going to get them to want to do the thing. It's the fact that they're actually just not getting what they want, and they're not able to feel like they belong somewhere that they want to be able to belong. That's the hard part. So when we think about it, we want that journal entry. And when we go about that, so we talked about your 4 steps there. We want to make sure we know, hey, I need you to act as. Who is your ideal client? How old are they? What are the outcomes? What are the things that they're chasing? What is it that they want? Give it that information, then follow up with ask me at least 10, 15, 20 more questions. And then we're going to continue on. So it'll ask you questions. To chunk it down, you can literally say, ask me 20 questions one at a time after I answer it. Otherwise, it gives you literally 20 questions.
Yeah,
You got to
don't do
write like a
that.
massive paragraph. Both work fine. I'm totally fine with the 20 questions. I'll pull it up on my app on my phone and just talk to it and answer it. But do it whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden, it should really know a lot of information about who your ideal client is, because you gave it some, it asked you further questions, you answered them, and now it knows, okay, cool, here's who I am, here's how I need to act, et cetera, et cetera. Then you're going to say, please write a journal entry that no one in your mind, like in your mind, no one's ever going to read, and be as raw and honest about your day-to-day life and the struggles and what losing weight or whatever the main goal would mean to you. And it's going to write you a good 2 to 3 paragraphs, right? Now, you can ask it write more, so it can give you more, or if you want to stay concise in less than 2 paragraphs, be specific about it. If it writes you a really good journal entry and you want to continue diving in, say it. Please expand on this, write it 2 times longer. That way I understand a little bit more in depth about your problems, about the emotional connections that you have. So read through that journal entry and understand it. More than likely, something's going to pop out. Oh, it's not necessarily the weight loss. It's about them feeling uncomfortable in the gym. So weight loss makes them feel comfortable. Please expand upon this. Write another journal entry, at least 3 paragraphs long, about not feeling comfortable in the gym and what losing weight would really mean to you. And it'll really dive into that specific thing. Write that journal entry out. After we're done with that, you're now going to tell it, based upon these 2 journal entries, please list out at least 10 micro problems that this person is truly facing. It's not just about weight loss, it's about these things. It'll give you those 10 micro problems. Now, all of a sudden, you know they struggle with binging on the weekends. They struggle with feeling confident in the gym. They don't like going away in the summer and wearing bathing suits because, and all of these things will start to pop up that now become super relatable to somebody. Something that people are now going to truly resonate with when you post content out there. Hey, are you somebody that hates going on your summer vacation because you don't want to wear a bathing suit? That is way more powerful than, hey, are you somebody that wants to lose weight? Both people want to lose weight, but the bathing suit thing is very specific to somebody who feels like they're uncomfortable in their bathing suit. Then to layer it in a little bit more, you can go ahead and ask or give me 10 different, call it hooks, or again, you might say blogs, you might send emails, you might be on Instagram, you might be doing TikTok, whatever platform in the medium that you need it in. Give me 10 ideas of content around micro problem 1, 2, and 3, micro problem 1 and 2, all 10 micro problems, however you want to do it. But now all of a sudden you get 10 micro problems. And if you ask it for 5 content ideas around each micro problem, that is 50 days worth of content right there without doing anything. And we're not even talking layering in the belief shifting framework, which pulls you through 6 steps to actually get somebody to go from micro problem kind of awareness to, hey, I need your thing. Now, all of a sudden, we layer in these 10 micro problems times these 5 pieces of content times the 6 steps. All of a sudden, we have 300 pieces or nearly a year's worth of content ready to rock and roll. And you and I just spent 20 to 30 minutes together. Not saying you don't have to refine it. I'm not saying there's not more work to
Yeah.
be done. I'm not saying it's done and you don't have to do a darn thing. But we just planned out from a high level 300-ish days worth of content in, I don't know, I've been talking for 6-7 minutes maybe. And we actually have copy and paste kind of prompts. You can plug it in there and that helps move you through this. But just imagine how impactful that could be for you, talking better to your clients, getting them to move through this kind of funnel of, hey, I need you to know I'm here, that I can solve your problem, and getting all of those people that feel bad about being in the gym to show up at your door. Imagine how that sales process goes when you know, oh, hey, this person clicked on the content that was talking about feeling bad in a bathing suit. And then they walk in the door and we're trying to leverage the idea of creating kind of conversation in that interactive sales arena. You already know a really deep thing about them, which probably wouldn't have come out in that conversation because it's hard to get there.
I mean, it's, the sky's the limit. And for those of you that might not use it for fitness or nutrition, and maybe you're just in a completely different industry, one of the best use cases that I think exists inside of AI these days is the ability to learn just about anything. And I don't think that information or the lack of information really is a disadvantage any longer. You can learn anything. I mean, like YouTube has stuff, you can Google whatever. And I say Google, you can search for whatever. And if you want to have ChatGPT create like a 30, 60, 90-day learning plan for you around a skill set, which it's crazy if you're not doing this, if you're not educating yourself, because it's like you can gain a better education than you could at an institution. And so there's something called first principles thinking that I think is really important for people to understand as well, because if these things that when we talk about belief shifting, if you don't know what that is, you can ask and prompt ChatGPT, hey, act as a teacher and whatever, right? Using first principles thinking, teach me about belief shifting, all right? Or teach me about frameworks or marketing frameworks or whatever it is that you want to learn more about. And it will literally break it down to the most basic principles that are absolutely essential to understand in that domain. So if you want to learn about day trading, you can say, hey, act as a financial consultant or a financial analyst, and this is something that we're both currently jacking around with. So we're dabbling in some trading and, sometimes you get smashed and sometimes you don't. But yeah, so we use, a lot of these things.
Hopefully in a year, we'll be able to say sometimes you get smashed and sometimes you smash it.
That's
right
right.
now, it's sometimes you get smashed and sometimes you don't.
It's a give and take for sure. It seems like it's a take more these days. So, but yeah, like, you think about the ultimate ways to leverage this in an agnostic of an industry is you got to know how to write the prompt. You have to then learn how to learn using this specific huge database that is so hyper contextualized if you allow it to be. So, I think that as we're brushing up against the 40-minute mark, I mean, any best practices, one or two best practices, Steve, to leave the audience with as we complete here.
The thing that I'll say on this piece is you have to be really intelligent, but also super ignorant. And you have to be super persistent. So ignorant, intelligent, persistent is what's going to make using AI, ChatGPT in our case, beneficial for you. And the reason, little expansion there, is really ignorant is you have to ask it the simplest and most basic questions possible. You have to remove as much of your assumption-based personality, which as humans, we already have things built up. Like, I assume every single grown adult knows what 2 + 2 is. When you're looking for some specifics when it comes to something you want, i.e. day trading or coaching, you can't make those same assumptions. You have to give it the information And then we can start to kind of go down that road of, all right, I know you know this. But you also have to be super intelligent, which means you need to know, like, all right, I want this thing. I need to give you this thing. Here's some reference thing, and give it that context, because otherwise it doesn't know. And it's, if you ask it, hey, give me some information, or hey, I want to be able to put a code in this thing, it might shoot out Python code. You might have no idea what's going on. And you're just like, all right, not really going to work. And the last piece, that persistent side of things, is when it gives you something that isn't what you want, you have to like tell it, and as you said, Andrew, massage through it, where we have to continue to push it and mold it in the direction we're desiring it for it to go, because it doesn't know. It's doing what it sees happening the most often. It's not doing what it thinks you are wanting from it, simply because that's just not how it works. So, Andrew,
Yeah,
any last words from you?
I mean, just to clarify, like, and to put the way that it's created today is not the way that it will be a year from now. The leaps and bounds of how quickly this is advancing as a technology are really just astounding. The difference between ChatGPT, the second model, and the fourth model, and the Sigma model, like, it really was, it's night and day different. So if you're listening to this since like 2027, thank you so much for sticking around that long. We love you. And, if it's 2024 and you're paying attention to this stuff, I can't impart to you enough that this is the most important technological advancement that you have to embrace if you want to continue to be a relevant professional in any industry. I mean, a lot of the information arbitrage, or the things that you used to have to know in order to be considered a competent professional, like law, for instance, now there's something that can literally scour the entire database. So those 2 a.m. nights of working and reading case law to find the one loophole, like that's going to disappear here soon. CPAs, crunching numbers, as long as you're not using Gemini, you know,
They'll get there. I believe they'll get there. It's Google.
100%. So anything that requires like a large information sifting is probably going to be gone. Like, they even detected breast cancer 4 years out for someone that had a weird lump. So medical stuff. And that's why, if I were to say anything, get really good with people skills, especially if you're in the service-based industry, because that relationship and the quality of the connection is going to be one of the few things that will keep you in a safe harbor for a little bit longer. And it will give you some breathing room to learn how to effectively use AI. And again, use first principles thinking. If you don't know, act as an AI consultant. Teach me, using first principles thinking, how to best leverage ChatGPT, and it'll literally tell you step by step, for the most part, how to use it. And I would say that's probably the best place to get started. But you probably got another 18 to 24 months before it's really integrated into most of the fabric of how we operate, because it provides such a financial advantage for companies. They don't have to hire people now, literally get rid of them and have, a machine sit there and do whatever it needs. So get started and get going.
And for you people who are out there going to, not going down that road right now, Andrew, but for those of you that are out there running some type of business and leveraging AI, or interested in leveraging AI, we're in a phase where you can use AI, and people will interact with AI that are less educated on AI, where they will still pay human prices. And what I mean by that is, it takes a lot of money and effort to get somebody who's highly skilled at a thing. ChatGPT is $20 a month. When everybody knows how to use it at a high level and they can get it to do what they need it to do, $20 a month is going to be hard to beat. And they're not going to pay thousands of dollars for things that AI can do. So you are in a period of time, 12 to 18 months, where that's a thing that can happen. But I'll leave you with that. Everybody.
Oh, we do have a guide that exists. Steve created the guide. There's also a coaching bot that I've created. So if you want access to that stuff, shoot us an email, steve@beyondthepump.com. If you want the AI guide, if you want access to the bots, we're only releasing a couple of people to have access to this stuff as of right now, before we roll it out in our continuing education product. So if you do have an interest in that, email me, Andrew at beyondthepump.com, and we're happy to shoot those resources over to you. I would say probably for the next couple weeks, because we love the feedback. So, I think that pretty much wraps us up. Got something for you guys. Hopefully you learned something new. And if you didn't, like it anyway and share it.
Subscribe, rate it, review, please share. It's the only way we can help more people. And we appreciate your time today.
All right, guys. Until next time.